Here, Arkansas launches Respite Care Program to support families living with dementia. The Arkansas Legislative Council on Friday, June 17th, approved the creation of and funding for the Dementia Respite Care Pilot Program to support the 93,000 plus Arkansans providing care for loved ones with Alzheimer's or other dementias. The program, the first of its kind in Arkansas, was established by the Alzheimer's and Dementia Advisory Council, part of the Act 391 of the 93rd General Assembly. And so both of us had the privilege and opportunity to be there at the press conference. I don't know how prepared I was because I didn't realize it was going to be such a big deal, but because all the news people were there. And so, but we did our part. I was there just sharing a quick review of what it is like to be a caregiver. And of course, Carolyn was there to talk about the program as a whole and how important it is and how to apply and all those things. So that's what she's gonna do. Right, Carolyn?
Absolutely. I think, Deepa, I guess I didn't realize you didn't realize how big of a deal this was. Because how many times in the last, 6 months have we asked you to come out or come to a Zoom session and talk about your experience? Because all those times we asked you to come out and talk to someone, it was leading up to this.
Yeah, I just, I know enough to be dangerous, I guess. I'm learning as I'm retired now, being my mother's full-time caregiver, I'm so much more in the present moment that I understand when you guys have me on Zoom and stuff that my story's important, but ultimately what you guys are doing behind the scenes, I don't know all the details. I don't understand the acts and the bills, but also the ask, that's ASKS, of our legislative groups and people of that nature. So I guess probably I know it's important when I share my personal story and those who also share theirs, but I don't think I understand how invaluable it is to everything else you all are doing.
Yeah, so, and I think that just kind of brought a little clarity to me for a moment there, because we reach out and say to caregivers, could you please tell your story? And I'd explain, I could tell your caregiver story, or there's a lot of people that tell me their story. However, it means so much more to legislators and other entities when they hear it from you, because I can't tell it the same way. And so you have done a lot of work that you did not realize when, we asked you to come on Zoom or to come to the State House to tell senators and legislators, like, just tell them what you do or what you're going through or what you realize. So, thank you for your hard work as well that you didn't even know you were doing. So thank you.
It's just best that I don't know what's going on, really.
Yeah, so and all the other caregivers that now probably don't recognize the hard work that they did in telling their stories, how we ended up here today talking about this Dementia Caregiver Respite Grant, because we recognize how important respite care is to caregivers. Now, I am not a numbers person because I do not like giving out the wrong information, and I have so many numbers in my head that a lot of times they just kind of get misconstrued, and I hate to give out like the wrong information. But I'm going to say that over a certain age, and I guess it's about 65 to 80, as you get older, caregivers die before the person they're taking care of.
Yeah, I heard that and it just blew my mind.
Yeah. So, I know many instances, I see it at work. It happened with my uncle. He took care of my aunt. He passed away before she did. She was the, quote, sick one. So many times, because especially I would say with dementia in some ways, and I don't want people to take this like in a harsh way or misinterpret my words, but the caregiver kind of recognizes the stress more. They take on more of the stress. So, stress.
Well, you and I talked before, and I was completely naive in the emotional talk, because I felt like I had everything in place when I moved my dad here and got him closer, because both my parents were having cognitive memory issues and then would be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I was the sole caretaker, and so I had everything I thought physically organized. Something I wish I'd shared if I had thought through, and I will from now on, as we, especially when we talk about the importance of respite. But the time that I realized that I didn't have it all together, and you and I've shared this with you before, was I would always plan it out. I was working full time at the time. Of course, my dad eventually would need care, home care from someone professional 4 hours a day, and then it, kept growing 8 hours a day, and then 24/7. But until then, I would go to Kroger up here on Cantrell, and that's where I'd do shopping at the same time for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Though my dad lived close in an apartment close to where I was caring for my mom here, it was only blocks away. It sounded really smart, sounded like I could handle it, But I remember standing there looking at the cereal, and it seemed like I'd been standing there for 20 minutes, and I knew I was fried. Emotionally and spiritually, I knew I was sitting there thinking while I was looking at the cereal, I can't run away, but I don't want to go back home. And thankfully that evening was a therapy session I had with my therapist, who was helping me just walk through some tools and opportunities to deal with the emotional part of my parents in this situation. So my brother then shortly came after that, and that was very helpful. That helped me off the cliff. But so I say that saying that I guess I do understand if I hadn't gotten help at that time. I don't know how I would have expired. Could have been a heart attack, what it might have been. At that time I was drinking too much, so who knows. But I could see where my health was taking a toll.
Yeah, so it's health, emotional, and mental. So, and we now recognize that, of course, our mental and emotional health is, of course, tied to, related in many ways to our physical health. So that's why respite care is so important. So depression, all those things lead to...
I would say I was depressed, yes.
Yes. So also in a difference, I know maybe somebody listening to this podcast, sometimes people wonder why dementia? Why dementia respite care? Why not another disease? Research shows that families, caregivers taking care of their loved one with dementia have increased depression, increased emotional needs. So it is really more prevalent in dementia because their cognitive abilities have changed. So many times, maybe with cancers and other things, their cognitive abilities have not.
It probably makes you feel, I know it did for me, more helpless.
Yes.
Because there was no sense of having a rational, reasonable conversation about why they could not do something or why they could do something. And so you realize, even having the conversation, that it was going to return void.
Yes, and to watch not only the physical decline, the mental decline, and the rhyme and reason, because you have watched your parent, your loved one, at their best. So, like them not able to have the cognitive, because the cognitive ability, the thinking abilities, doing things out of their character, not being able to comprehend the behaviors that we like to call them like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to wrap our minds around, this is not my mother anymore at the functioning like she used to. So there's a lot of mental things that come with that processing. So it is a hard thing to wrap our minds around.
And I think, if I'm staring at the cereal for 20 minutes and not wanting to move, I know that what I'm dealing with is not going to get better. I'm not going to be able to reason. They're not going to learn new things. And so it's like you feel really stuck. And so though, I know that another thing that after the press conference, after I finished my story, and I had said something like, I've not needed respite yet, care. You like sternly looked at me when I got back over there, and you said, I have a challenge for you. Then later on, she told me what that challenge is, and we're going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about that, yeah.
Because what she said makes complete sense. And the reason I bring this up is I was having lunch with a friend yesterday, and her father has dementia. And it's, I think, her stepmother who's caring, and they're older. And I was mentioning the grant to her, and she said to me, oh, she won't do it. And I've heard this before. There is, and it's not a stigma, it is two things I think that I think you would be able to touch upon. Is first, that people wait till the last minute, till it's too late. Second is they don't feel like it's something they can do because they feel like they're not betraying their loved one, they're letting their loved one down. And especially if you're leaving your loved one, even if it's for several hours.
So it's a responsibility guilt kind of complex.
Let's talk about that.
So kind of to bring you back, a challenge in respite care. Respite care is emotionally one of the most difficult things for me to get some caregivers to do. It is absolutely something that most caregivers do not think about. And for a number of reasons, but sometimes probably for the kind of like you're saying, maybe like the same two or three reasons. So number one, maybe a responsibility. They are my parents or my spouse, and it is my job to do it. So when people tell me that, I kind of ask them to consider their children, if they've ever had children, nieces, nephews, had children in their responsibilities. Did you ever send your kids to daycare or to school? Like, there's sometimes a place where you need to allow someone else to take on certain responsibilities. I can remember my son, he's older now, that there were certain things I couldn't teach him. He ended up so much better when someone else did it, right? And another thing is, he was so much more well behaved when he was around someone else sometimes. Like, sometimes we don't recognize even our loved ones, for lack of a better term, I'll say sick or tired of us is more than you think they are.
Well, they can get away with more. They can push our buttons.
Yes, but they need a break from us as well. You think about, oh, I don't need a break, but sometimes if you think about when you're in relationships, because it's a relationship, like absence sometimes is one of the greatest gifts you could give to each other. I mean, you see each other, you're around each other all the time. Like, you give each other something else to talk about, to miss one another. So, considering the fact that not only do you get a break, but they get a break from you as well. Because most of us as caregivers, I promise you, we get on their nerves. Because we're always trying to make sure they're doing something and telling them what to do. They need a break.
Well, especially when it's parent-child role reversal. I know that my mom has grown accustomed to the fact that I'm the one saying, let's do this, don't do that, and she's more relaxed in that. But there's sometimes she gets a little, cranky, and she'll remind me, I'm the mom.
Yeah.
And I don't have to do that. And I'm like, well, that's true. So they will, on a difficult day, remind you of your status in their life.
Yeah. And so consider that it may be refreshing for them to have interaction with someone new, or knowing that someone else is going to come around for them to have interaction with. So that could be a relief from your responsibility. And sometimes it is, for some people, embarrassment in the aspect of sometimes what they may say or do. And that's that they won't go for that. Sometimes they always want me around kind of statement. And in some ways it may or may not be true. I always have to go back to what I know. So I think about children again. And I think most of us can kind of think about it. So when you have your own children, even grandkids, sometimes like they cry around there. I drop my kid off at daycare and he's crying, I don't want to go. And I'm like, he's like acting up. As soon as I drive away, like they forget about you, right? So we don't want to have other people assume. Yeah, a lot of assumptions, right? So, and that's what we do. And like, they're going to act up, or they're going to do this. And it's a possibility. I mean, everything's a possibility, but you don't know unless you give it a try. Sometimes it's like the best thing that can happen. And it's also how you introduce people in the situation to adults. I mean, you can introduce them as friends, companions. You may introduce them as, hey, I have a new friend that I met. They're going to come over for lunch, get to know. You want to meet a new friend of mine? Let them come over. All of you get to know them together. And then eventually you kind of just remove yourself as they get to know them, like from the room. So when you're ready to introduce, you take the same steps. Have a friend come over for lunch, and you all get to know them, and you slowly introduce, and then before you know it, in a different situation, you remove yourself from the room and allow them to get to know each other. So that way the trust factor with them grows, and you for not being there with them. So you'll have trust. So there's many ways to do that. And we talked about that the other day in like taking steps, or maybe not with you. Like I'm trying to say, is it with you? Because, I talk to so many people. Respite comes in many forms. So we use the term respite, and I want to take a quick minute right now because everybody does not know what respite means. So respite really just means taking a short break from your day-to-day task, your day-to-day life. It's kind of like when you remember when you were talking about standing at the cereal, like you needed a break like months, weeks before. So you have to take a break. You have to get some time for yourself. You have to re-energize. So it's just a short break so you can continue on your caregiving task. We can't relieve you of your caregiving task, but we can try to help you get breaks. Now, a lot of times people say, I can't get a break. I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, Carolyn. How am I going to get a break? So I usually just talk to people about how do you get a break? Because it seems like the hardest thing that can happen when you have to provide 24-hour care. And the longer you're caregiving, when your loved one, I know there's people right now saying, how do I get a break? My loved one, they don't want me to leave the room, or I can't go to the store and leave them. We kind of talk about it a little bit. So maybe you aren't the one that's ready. Sometimes it's the caregiver that's not ready to leave them. They say it's their little one, but maybe really it's them. So maybe you just need that nap. But you're afraid to go to sleep in the daytime because what if they get out? Or what if they get into something? That's really a possibility. But you could introduce them to a friend that would come over and let you take a nap. So respite does not mean that you have to leave the house. It means that you just take a break, take a nap if that's what you need. Respite can mean relieving you from a task. So a lot of women I know, is their husband has some sort of dementia. They used to mow the lawn, and they can't or not ask them to mow the lawn. It's like one of the worst tasks ever. It's July in Arkansas, right? It's coming up. So I'm like, if you don't have to do that task, is that respite? Maybe. You know? Or to some men, I've had men to say, what if I use like somebody to help me with meals? That's respite because they don't know how to cook. So that's a break. So companionship. So there's many ways respite comes into play. So it's just kind of like thinking outside of the box. We want to give you a short break to help you. A lot of times you can't leave the house. It's impossible, I know. But we can help you figure out. Maybe you just want to go in the backyard and garden or sit on the porch and enjoy some iced tea. But we can figure out how to get you a break. Respite care should not be complicated because you don't want to add another task. You want to make it as simple as it needs to be. I mean, even if you have to feel like, okay, I'm going to take respite, in the next room while someone is there. At least until you build trust. Try it and let it work for you the best way you can, because you don't want to add stress. You already have enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, anytime we have to fill out an application and then go get more information and then prove this or that that's probably what they're freaking out about. I know in the past I thought, well, gosh, if it's complicated.
So the one thing Alzheimer's Arkansas it works towards is like to make this application and the process very, very easy. So it's really simple in the aspect of, so as long as the patient has a primary, it could be a primary or secondary diagnosis of any dementia. So Alzheimer's is the most common form, just in case people need to know that. So any dementia, and it must be on a doctor's letterhead that is signed. There is no income guideline, so you don't have to worry about income. It is literally like a 2-page, and not like it's not a. Yeah, I brought one because of the challenge.
And she's issued me a challenge to go ahead and fill it out.
And if you're listening, I want you to take the challenge too. But it's literally like your name, address, marital status, your relationship to the patient, a little information on the patient. You do not have to live with your loved one. A lot of people caregive without living in the house. No, you do not have to hire a professional. You can hire someone as long as they're 18 years of older age and they don't live in your household. So some people hire their grandkids. So they're home for the summer. They love spending time with their grandparents. Their grandparents love spending time with them. And really, it's $500. And maybe it's just a token of appreciation, right? So, with some people, it's priceless for you to get out, right? We really can't pay you. I wish we could afford, we had money for you could really afford to pay people what you wanted to pay them. But even your friends, it's a token of appreciation. Gas is high, even it's expensive even to get in your car to come over. So just a token of appreciation, even if, you're like, oh, I'm going to buy you dinner like that. I'll give you the money so you can you guys can eat what you want to eat, like, because expenses can come with you coming over.
Now, once you make it and you get approved, and how does it work after that? And I think this is another thing that probably people think it's so complicated. Do you get the money? Do you send in something? I don't know. How does that
So, the process is 10 business days to get processed. At that point, we will send you your status approved or denied, and at that point, you would hire someone, and you decide between you and the person you're going to hire how much you're going to pay an hour. And just depending on that person, that depends on how long you get to use that $500. I've seen people pay people $10 an hour, some cheaper than that, and then of course, like you said, some $20 an hour. So it just depends on what you and that person that you hire decide. We have no, we don't have anything to do with how much they charge or how much you pay. If you have a question, if you're listening and if you think it's too much, if you have a question about what's the hourly rate that most people pay, please feel free to call us or any in-home care agency. Do not, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, you don't know that person, I say step back and call someone and ask. But because you have the freedom, it could be a church member, it could be a friend, it could be a family member, as long as that family member does not live in the household. So at that point, there's a log, and you log it's kind of like a time log, the day, how many hours, and the rate that you paid them.
And so is this time log something that's provided online?
Yes, online, and we will send one with the approval letter. And you can send it all at one time. You can use it, the 500 all at once, or you can do it in increments of however you feel. So if they decide that they do $10 an hour and they do 5 hours a week and it's only $50, then you can, and you want to pay them $50 at a time, you can either get reimbursed or we can send the check directly to the person. On the log, you get to decide how that is.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, folks, what you're hearing is this is not complicated.
It's not. So you don't have to say, I don't have the money to pay them first. As long as you have an agreement and you tell them that Alzheimer's Arkansas will send you the check, and we get those processed in about 10 days as well. So you fill it out. If you want us to pay them, we'll pay them. If you want to pay and we reimburse you, we'll do that as well. So you don't have to feel like you have to have the money up front to pay your caregiver. So, and you don't have to feel like you have to hire a stranger. So it's kind of up to you. You have the freedom to pick your caregiver. You have the freedom to how you pay. I want this money to go fast because I want the state to know that we need this money.
That's a good point.
Because if it goes fast and we need this money, then we can go back and ask for more. So we can put this on the budget. It is a pilot program. Alzheimer's Arkansas, we have Title III funding, which is part of the Older Adult Act. And we manage a grant. It's about $187,000 and maybe a little more, kind of depending. And it's for 6 counties in Central Arkansas, and we get it for every year. So we service 187,000, so we're talking about 200 for the whole state. Yeah, we want that money to go. Yeah, because we want more. We want to be able to ask the legislators for more money. We want it to go. We want $500,000. We want to be able to make sure caregivers can have money. There is through the Arkansas Department of Health as well. We have a lifespan respite grant. So lifespan is just what it is. We also receive grant funding for that, for the lifespan. So depending on funding for that, we receive grant money from birth to, death for people taking care of their loved ones with chronic illnesses, disabilities, so, autism, any birth defects. So we
That's
manage
really
those
good
as
to know,
well.
because the name itself makes everyone think that that's critical information for those of you who are out there caring for someone else with a disability that's not dementia.
Yeah. Yeah, and so just to kind of go back to where I was talking about that Older American Act, the CareLink grant that we manage, it's for anyone with a chronic illness as long as they're over 60 years of age in the 6 central counties. So it can be advanced diabetes, it can be anything that's chronic. So you can contact our office at 501-224-0021. Go to our website at alzark.org, and you can find out about that grant as well. So yes, we help a lot more caregivers than just caregivers of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay, good to know. And all the ways that you can reach Carolyn and her staff and office will be in the description. And again, this is an exciting opportunity, a good opportunity, a blessed opportunity for these funds. And our main intention here is, and Carolyn's main intention is to get me to fill out an application and not wait till the last minute. So I want that to also be, I want to then issue the challenge out to the rest of the Arkansans who are in this situation to do the same. Don't wait till the last minute. Because once you fill out the application, are you in the system and it's not like you got to use it within 2 days?
No, you don't. So I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get to the challenge. So I know some people maybe they do want to they don't want in-home care. Because sometimes people are going on vacation. So you can use it at a in-home care. You can use it for daycare, adult daycare. I really hate that word. I'm going to try to find a new way, but people get it. So adult daycare, you can use it for short-term stay facilities, and that just means assisted livings that have respite care. Even nursing homes have respite care. You do have to meet their qualifications, and I would say if you're thinking about those, you do have to they have to get an assessment to make sure that they can provide the care for your loved ones. And a lot of times I get, especially in central Arkansas, I'll get people that call me from, admissions that say, hey, we have special rates for people that use your respite care grants. So, and sometimes that $500 can pay up to 3 days, 2 or 3 days. So at least you can get a good weekend for this $500. So don't think it won't help even in out of home, in care and facilities. So that could get you a good strong weekend.
That's a good point, because when my brother was here, I got real excited because a friend of mine, we went on a long 4-day excursion to Utah, and it felt so good. First of all, I knew my brother was here looking after both of them. I didn't have to worry, and it wasn't like a week or 10-day vacation, but it was so needed, and it was such a special time. And so, just know that even if it's a long weekend, it's still a weekend.
It's still a weekend. So to recharge. So yes, this could possibly get you a good 3-day weekend at an assisted living. So remember though, if you're thinking about using it for an assisted living or a nursing home, you do have to get assessed. So you need to give them time to come out, assess your loved ones to make sure that they can provide the care that your loved ones need. So the next thing is you ask about how long do you have. So I think for this one, I think it's 3 months.